Hello challengers. This is a video that I've just quickly put together to try to explain the British National Grid system. It's a system that isn't familiar to many of our first-time overseas challengers, so rather than just showing you how to take a grid reference from a map, I'm going to run through how grid references are formed. If all you're interested in is the mechanics of taking a 6-digit grid reference from a map, then just skip forward to 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Otherwise, I'll start from the beginning. The foundation of the British National Grid is a 5x5 grid that has been overlaid onto the UK, with each square being allocated a single letter, omitting the letter I. So as you can see here, we've got 5 letters going across, 5 letters coming down. There's 26 letters in the alphabet, but I has been omitted here. At this level, each square has a resolution of 500 kilometres by 500 kilometres. Each of those squares is then subdivided into its own 5x5 grid, with each new square allocated a second letter, which we can see here has been done for the letter A. And once again, the letter I is missing. However, A is not very interesting because there is no land under it, so let's look at N, because N covers the whole of the Scottish mainland, and therefore it covers the whole of the TGO Challenge area. This is how it looks for the TGO Challenge area. And each of these boxes is 100 kilometres across and 100 kilometres high. Now for a TGO Challenge route sheet, we need a position more accurate than somewhere within a square of 10,000 square kilometres. So digits need to be added to the prefix letters to hone the accuracy in further. Those digits are written as eastings first, then northings. Or, to put that more simply and perhaps in a way that's more easy to remember, you have to go along the corridor before you go up the stairs. I'm going to hone in further, and for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to pick square NN by way of an example. So let's remove the map from under it, and here we have square NN. And as I just mentioned, this is a square that's 100 kilometres by 100 kilometres. So let's overlay a 10 by 10 grid on top of square NN. Having put this 10 by 10 grid over NN, each square is now 10 kilometres across and 10 kilometres high. NN67 would be the square that's 6 in and 7 up. You may notice that this is pointing to the corner of 4 different boxes. So we've gone 6 across, we're going 7 up, we've got a grid reference NN67, and we're on the corner of 4 boxes. Now it's important to know that no matter what resolution you're giving that grid reference to, you're always referring to the box to the northeast of that point. So here we've got a resolution of 10 kilometres by 10 kilometres, we're referring to this box. If that was a 10-digit grid reference, we'd be at a resolution of 1 metre by 1 metre, but it'd still be referring to that 1 metre by 1 metre box to the northeast of where we've pointed to, where we've given the grid reference for. So here we have that 10 by 10 square, which is defined by its origin, which is the bottom left-hand corner, NN67. But we're still at a resolution of 10 kilometres by 10 kilometres if we only use 2 digits after the initial letters. And for TGO Challenge purposes, for your route sheet, this isn't sufficiently accurate. So let's take that one square and draw another grid onto it. So let's take the square NN67, just that red square we were looking at, and let's put another 10 by 10 grid over the top of it. The origin of this grid is 6070, and we've divided it up, so each square is now 1 kilometre by 1 kilometre. Now, if we overlay an Ordnance Survey map onto that grid, you can see that this is exactly what happens on an Ordnance Survey map. So where I've got 61 underneath, that says 61 on the map. Where it says 62, it says 62. Where on the side it says 74, it says 74, and onwards and onwards. So we've now translated that grid to match exactly what is shown on the map. So if we now want to take a grid reference here, we apply the exact same thing. I'm just taking an example here of NN6477. So we're going to go across to 64. We're going to go up to 77, and we are now referring to this yellow box here. And if we were to just say NN6477, we're referring to anywhere within the box that lies upwards and to the right, to the northeast of that grid origin position. However, for TGO challenge purposes, a six-figure grid reference is required, which means that each 1 kilometre by 1 kilometre square now needs to be divided into its own 10 by 10 grid, which is a resolution of 100 metres, which, as you'll appreciate, is a much more useful resolution for route sheet purposes. We want to know approximately within 100 metres of where you intend to be. Let's take away that grid, and so that we can see it a bit bigger, just look at the map itself. And we've still got the eastings and the northings shown here. So ignoring the readout at the bottom of this screen, let's just pretend that this is a paper map, and just by eyeballing it without using any instruments, let's try and work out what the grid reference is of the summit of Mial Al-Huron here. Now, we go across to 64, and let's say that's just over halfway across the square, so that's 646. And then going up, it is around, let's say, 7 increments through the 77 on the northing, so let's call that 646777, and never forget to put the first 2 grid reference letters in there, so that is NN 646777. Now, if you're using mapping software, this is, as you might notice, this is OMN. At the bottom of the screen here, it works differently on different applications, but here on the screen, it gives me a handy readout. I've not already looked at that, but let's put the pointer on there. We can see that if we measure it exactly, it is, as I said, it is NN 646777. Now, you might notice this is giving me 8 digits after my 2 letters, and that's because I have the setting set to precision of 10 metres. If I change it to 100 metres, then that gives me 6 digits. But just for demonstration purposes, let's go back to 8 digits. If you've got an 8-digit grid reference or a 10-digit grid reference, then how do you go about changing that to just a 6-digit grid reference? What you don't do is just lop off the last 2 digits of that grid reference if you've got 8 digits, or the last 4 digits if you've got a 10-digit grid reference. Because if you were to just knock 2 digits off what I'm seeing there, which is NN 64627771, then you'd end up with 646277. You'll have the easting correct at 646, but 277 is some 50 kilometres away from where you intend to state, which is 777. So in the case of a 10-digit grid reference, you want to remove 2 digits from the easting and 2 from the northing, and in the case of an 8-digit grid reference, you remove 1 from the easting and 1 from the northing. So as you can see on the screen here, both of these become NN 646777.